Hi guys, School Corridor here with Sharon Lewin, and of course we present with the SGB series. So in our first session, I just gave you a bit of background about the SGBs and spoke about the importance of the SGB structure that you have at the school, because that is your grassroots democratic structure. And we try to emphasize that all the governors must cooperate. They must work together because they must be driven by the interests of the school and not the individual interests only of their constituencies that elected them as the governor, school governor. Okay, so that was during our first session. So I hope that you now understand that the SGB is a what do we call it? A cooperative governance structure. And so we must put all our personal agendas aside and always bear in mind that we are the governors of a school and that we must look after the interests of all the stakeholders involved. Okay, so in today's session, I want to speak about the SGB Constitution. But before we get there, obviously, the new SGB should have had the first meeting and you should have elected your office bearers. Right, so the Act makes it clear that you need to at least comply with the minimum requirements, and that is the following. So if you look for that information, you can find it in section 29 concerning the office bearers. So let me just close these overlays that I have here, and then I want to open the one I want to open my slides. And there you can see section 29 speaks about the office bearers. So according to the Act, you must have a chairperson, a treasurer, and secretary. Those are the minimum requirements in terms of the office bearer positions that you have on the SGB. You'll see that if you're a public ordinary school, then your chairperson must be a parent. Right, so no educator, non-educator, principal or learners can occupy that office bearing position. Then of course, if you're at a special needs school, you may elect a chairperson from anybody who's serving on your school governing body. Remember, your special needs governing body structure makes allowance for governing body members to come from the various organizations that are involved in your school. So any of those governors who come from those organizations and they have been elected can serve as the chairperson. Okay, so no principal, no teacher, no support staff member, no learner may occupy the chairperson position. There is that relaxation or that provision in the Act, where if you don't have a parent who is able to be the chairperson of the school governing body, you can elect the chairperson from one of the other governing body members who belong to the various organizations that serve your school. Okay, and then of course the treasurer, that is pretty straightforward, and a secretary. So most SGBs have quite a few office bearers, but those are the minimum office bearing positions that you must comply with according to the Act. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's step over to the Constitution. I think this is exciting. So you'll find the SGB Constitution provisions in the Act, Section 18, and you'll see that according to Section 18, subsection 1, every single school governing body must have a constitution. Now remember, we have had school governing bodies for a very long time. So all schools and the SGBs will have a constitution. Now, when you become the school governing body, then you have to adopt that constitution after you, of course, had read it. You understand what is in the constitution. You would have made the necessary amendments, and then you adopt that constitution, right? So you'll find that information in the Act, section 20, subsection 1, where it speaks about the fact that you have to adopt the constitution. So what does that mean? It means that you're going to have your meeting. Everybody will be given a copy of the constitution. you will, as a school governing body, discuss the constitution, run through the entire constitution with everybody, because you want to make sure that everybody understands what the constitution is about. You're not going to undermine anybody there and say you go read it on your own. Yes, people may get a copy beforehand. Let your governors study the constitution, but during your meeting, you will still discuss what the constitution is actually stating so that everybody knows. Then if everybody's happy, they will agree that they will be bound by that constitution, which means they will adopt it. The meeting will then record that everybody adopted the constitution, and then the constitution will be signed off by the chairperson and of course the secretary. Okay, so that is one of the first steps that you have to take. Now, remember, your constitution will guide you in terms of your behavior and the kinds of actions that you can take, because you're going to stipulate it in your constitution. And so if you go onto the internet, you will find many examples of school constitutions, and you can use that to check it against your constitution. You can even look at the constitution exemplar that is provided to you by the education department. Okay, so don't treat it like a frivolous exercise, or don't treat it with contempt in the sense that you just tell the governors there is a constitution, that you've been bound by this constitution all the years, and that the constitution works. Go through the proper process by explaining the constitution to all your governors, and then make sure that everybody understands. So when your governors adopt the constitution, that everybody's comfortable and everybody knows what the content is. Okay? And I think sometimes we forget that perhaps there will be experienced governors on your school governing body. Your principal is experienced. The teachers may or may not be experienced. And then because you have a certain knowledge of how the constitution operates, you could possibly make that erroneous assumption that everybody knows what is in the constitution. Okay? Then once you have adopted that constitution as an SGB, it will then be recorded in your minutes, and everybody must then get a copy of the constitution. Okay? It is very important that you do this process, that you actually adopt the constitution and have it signed, because the constitution will then be binding, and you cannot really make any governance decisions if you have not adopted the constitution. Okay, so you cannot operate without having accepted the constitution. So any decision that you make could be regarded as irregular and even invalid. So that is a very important step. Then these are the minimum provisions according to the Act that you must include in your constitution. Okay, and you'll find it there in section 18, subsection 2. So the first provision is that you must have meetings, and the minimum requirement is that you have a quarterly meeting for SGBs. Okay, so SGBs must meet at least once a quarter. Then the Act is also prescriptive in terms of when you have to meet with all your other stakeholders, your parents, your educators, your learners, your support staff, and that annual meeting, there should be at least one meeting per year. Okay, and I'm speaking under correction, but that meeting does not refer to your budget meeting. Your budget meeting that you have is a meeting that will concern the financial matters and where you're going to present the budget. This is an annual general meeting that you are supposed to have. Then the third provision that the Act requires you to have in your constitution is that you must make reference to the fact that you will compile an annual report of all SGB activities that you have conducted for the year. Now, that is very important, because SGBs don't only exist to have meetings once a quarter and then you just get a report back on what you spent and what happened at the school, and then it just becomes a very business meeting where all the issues of finances and other sort of technical issues will be discussed. The SGB must also have a must also set goals. The SGB must also have a vision, or a plan for the year. So I would say that in terms of applying this, putting this into practice, what are you going to report on? You can't just report that you had a meeting every quarter and that you had your annual meeting. What about your goals? What goals did you set? Because you want to ensure that your school develops into a high performing school and that all the interests of your stakeholders have been met because you have set certain goals, you have certain objectives. So I would imagine that SGBs will also have their own management plan or their own calendar, right? So most schools have a school calendar, and I suppose on the school calendar you will plot the SGB meetings, but school governing bodies are there to help to build the school. So obviously there must be certain objectives, certain goals that will of course be in line with what the school has identified. And so the SGPs will have to track, are they making, what are their achievements? Have they made progress? Have they been successful? What were the challenges? What could they and couldn't they do? And what were the risks? What prevented them from reaching their goals? And then, of course, there will be information about what the financial position of your SGB is, and how the SGB has been able to meet all their objectives, right? There will probably also be information about the discipline at the school, and there will be information about the activities that took place at the school. So that report is not just a financial report or a discipline report. It's actually a report that will be comprehensive, and it will cover all the areas that the SGB has been engaged in. And so if your school hasn't complied with that, if I say the school, I'm talking about the school governing body, if you've never received a school governing body annual report where the school governing body has actually reported on its own activities, then I think it's something that you need to seriously consider, because that omission, where you don't comply with the act, and of course, more importantly, that you don't report to the stakeholders what you have been doing, then I think that is also a way of undermining the power and the authority of your SGBs, and also breaking down the communication and the relationship between the SGB and the rest of the school. That also will cause that alienation between the SGBs and the school, and everybody will just see the SGB as meeting to have disciplinary meetings because of children that have broken a school rule, or it could just be about finances. SGBs have a very, very important role in terms of looking after the interests of everybody, making sure that the highest quality of teaching and learning is taking place at the school, making sure that the grounds are sorted, and there are so many responsibilities and so many exciting things that I'm sure the SGB will get involved in. And it would be so good if that information could be shared with the rest of the staff, because one, the Schools Act requires the SGB to report on that. But secondly, if you want to build community and you want to build relationships, then it's always good to find vehicles or mechanisms to ensure that you keep that relationship alive and healthy between you and your stakeholders. Okay, and we know that's a huge struggle in terms of building relationships, and here the Act is making it possible by dictating that you must bring out an annual report to say what you've done. And of course you can be creative about how you're going to do it. Yes, it's a pandemic now, so we can't meet, but there are fantastic ways of relating your your successes, and telling the community what you're actually doing, so people won't think that you're just rubber stamping all the decisions that are taken at the school. Okay. And then of course, once you've signed, you've agreed and adopted the constitution as an SGB, that signed a copy of the signed copy must go to the head of department, the head of education, and so you need to send that. Okay, so I think you still have a bit of time now, because you that's about 3 months after you've been elected. So this process of adopting the constitution should have taken place already, and it should have been signed off, and it must be on record at the school. Every single school governing body member must have a copy for his or her own records, and then of course you must ensure that the head of department in the Western Cape, it will be the Western Cape Education Head of Department, that should get a copy of the SGB Constitution. So guys, that is all about the Constitution, and of course we spoke about the Officebearers. Hope you enjoy it, and don't forget, listen, put some comments there when you're watching and you like what you're hearing and it's helping you. Then jot down a comment, and then of course you are free to share this video with whoever you think can benefit from it, because we're just trying to help ensure that everybody gets to know what is the role of the SGB, and is it really just a matter of sitting there in meetings? No, no, no. Let's make our SGBs highly functional and an enjoyable experience for our parents, our learners, our educators, our non-educators, and of course the principal of the school. So I'll see you next time. Cheerio. Bye.